Right now, Russian President Vladimir Putin's meeting with Kim Jong-un, and earlier today, the North Korean leader hosted Putin for a lavish welcome ceremony with portraits of both leaders strewn atop surrounding buildings throughout the nearby streets. Think Washington, D.C. in 2025 if Donald Trump wins. It's been 24 years since Putin visited the reclusive nation as his war on Ukraine stretches into another summer. North Korea's ability to arm Russia with weapons and artillery is critical for Putin's war aims. And as both leaders face escalating standoffs with the West, we're learning they signed a deal to help each other in case the other is attacked. Let's bring in Rogers Chair of American Presidency at Vanderbilt University, historian Jon Meacham. John, we really are seeing a shift here. There was a time not so long ago when Russia was largely dependent on Germany and other countries in the European Union to help fuel their economy. Obviously, China has been depending more and more on Europe and the West for quite some time. You're now really seeing, quoting David Frum, who we just talked about, a great piece he has in The Atlantic about it, Detroit. You're really seeing this axis of evil with Russia, North Korea, Communist China, the most repressive communist nations on earth. Putin would like to call himself a communist leader, but the most repressive nations on earth coming together to unite against the West, to unite against NATO, to unite against America, to unite against freedom. And I've got to say, the most frightening part of that, because standing alone doesn't cause a concern if you look at our economic might and our military might, but the most concerning part of that alliance is that Donald Trump considers himself to be close friends with every one of those tyrants.
That's the picture that we should all focus on right now. It's arguably the most important part of this unfolding political campaign is that the Republican nominee wants to be in that frame. He wants to be walking through squares like that. By his own admission, he admires that. He admires the authoritarianism. He admires the toughness. And I would just say to all of my friends, and your friends too, who consider themselves Reagan Republicans, look at these images and explain to us why somehow or another it is in the American interest to support Vladimir Putin against American intelligence agencies, against American interest, against the longstanding, sometimes ambivalent, sometimes unsuccessful, sometimes contradictory, but persistent support of democracies around the world on the part of the United States. Our collective security after World War II was based on the idea that democracies tended not to go to war with each other. Autocracies tended to go to war against democracies. That is the pattern. And it doesn't necessarily predict the future, but it's a pretty good diagnostic guide. And if you want to understand the global stakes of what we're facing, those are the images to show.
You know, what's so remarkable here, John Meacham, is that you look at Donald Trump's words, and we've talked time and time again about the Peter Millar Republicans in the clubhouse sitting there. Well, it's Republican versus Democrat, and Biden, he's a socialist. How's your 401k? Oh, making more money than ever. How's your stocks? Oh, doing breaking records every day. But he's a socialist, so I'm just going to vote for the Republican, acting as if this is Dole versus Clinton in 1996. Let's look at the words and your friends and my friends. How do they justify the fact that they're still considering voting for a guy who called President Xi, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, who asked him at Mar-a-Lago reportedly about building concentration camps for Uyghurs, and Trump offhandedly said, yeah, sure, yeah, sounds great. Who called, he praised President Xi as being incredibly powerful with an iron fist, a brilliant guy with an iron fist, and respected the fact he had an iron fist and could repress over 1 billion of his citizens. He called Vladimir Putin's invasion of Russia brilliant. Brilliant. I say that to all of your friends at the 19th hole and my friends. And then, of course, went on and on about his love letters to Kim Jong-un, a man who's considered to be the most bloodthirsty communist tyrant on the face of the globe. This is who your friends, some of your friends, some of my friends, some of your family, some of my family, and everybody on Fox News is supporting.
It's one of the great puzzles of, and I mean this. I can argue the domestic side. I understand. I don't agree with it, but I understand the taxes and judges argument for domestically supporting the Republican nominee, whoever it might be. And boy, we have now tested 3 times whoever it might be. But this one doesn't make sense to me. This is a party whose modern incarnation, most recent incarnation before the Trumpification of it, was Ronald Reagan's philosophy of the Cold War: we win, they lose. Right? It was a negotiating position from the former president of the Screen Actors Guild, who called him an evil empire and then brought Gorbachev to the table. And the Soviet Union falls on George H.W. Bush's watch, Christmas Day 1991, without a single American troop being in a forward combat position. Something unimaginable. But it was the product, yes, of a bipartisan coalition where we argued about the relative projection of force against Soviet tyranny, but we never argued about the fact of Soviet tyranny, not in a serious way. Here you have a 3-time Republican nominee for president, right? Which is only, let's see, Nixon got it 4 times. That's the record. So Donald Trump is closing in on Richard Nixon and his record for winning the Republican presidential nomination. We have a nominee who argues that Russia is a more reliable partner than his own intelligence agencies, and supports the rawest kind of aggression against neighbors, which is the tenet of the international order, right? So how does, and I'm not asking this in sort of a MSNBC hyperbolic, moment, how does a Reagan-Bush Republican support a Republican nominee who puts not America first, but Putin first? How do you justify it?
Well, and not just Jonathan O'Meara, not just Putin first over his own intel chiefs that he appointed, and of course you asked that question. But again, praises the leader of communist China as a brilliant man with an iron fist, praises the fact that he's able to repress over 1 billion of his people, that he's able to put Uyghurs, 1 million Uyghurs in concentration camps. Kim Jong-un, again, talking about love letters and what a remarkable relationship he has with Kim Jong-un. Again, this is, as John said, I mean, this is what moved my family, who were Cold Warriors all along, from the Democratic to the Republican Party. It's why my dad loved Reagan, well, first Nixon and then Reagan so much, because they were tough on communists. They were tough on tyrants. They were tough on dictators like Kim Jong-un, who threatens the West all the time, who threatens America all the time. Tough on people like, I mean, I could go on and on down the list, but John's, of course, exactly right. This is what held the Republican Party together for so long. That was the fact that we were all children of Reagan. We supported, we believed in Western democracy. We believed in Western freedoms and believed that there was, in fact, a battle between East and West politically and ideology. It defined Dr. Brzezinski's life. It defined Dr. Brzezinski's writings. And like Reagan, he had a very simple view, and most Republicans had this view as well. The strategy for Dr. Brzezinski, the strategy for Ronald Reagan, the strategy for Jeane Kirkpatrick, the strategy for Madeleine Albright, the strategy for Robert Gates. We win, they lose. Donald Trump has it completely reversed. He attacks democratically elected leaders in Europe who are freely elected, and he admires and praises communist tyrants.
Yeah,
and again, the point there is, again, that's who the Republican Party is lining up behind this year, like they did 4 years ago, like they did 8 years ago. And they wonder why they keep losing.
Yeah, if there's a strongman out there, Donald Trump has tried to cozy up to him. And this is not a secret. He's doing it in plain sight. Republicans know this, and yet they're voting for him anyway. Someone who would praise Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, and the rest. And we know the preservation of democracy is a core tenet for the Biden campaign. They feel like that worked in 2020, largely on domestic issues. They now feel like it's even more important in the post-January 6th world, but also internationally with what we're seeing in Ukraine, the war there, that this is Putin, an autocrat, trying to illegally seize a democracy in Ukraine. And they feel like this will matter again, that it's not something that always is picked up in the polls, that this is not an issue that, is as buzzy as, say, as inflation or other matters, or whether Joe Biden is too old. But they think that among a core group of Americans, in particular, older Americans who remember the Cold War, who care about these things, who care about standing up for democracy, that this will matter, Joe, that this is an issue that will matter come November.
All right. And still